By currency traders and on Capitol Hill as well. Joining us now with her concerns as well as her thoughts on the economy, healthcare, and federal spending, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison of Texas. She's ranking Republican on the Senate Commerce Committee. She's also running for governor of the Lone Star State. Senator, welcome. Good as always to see you.
Thank you, Tyler. Great to be with you.
Why don't we start with the dollar and talk about your concerns about its value, and speak to the people in Texas and elsewhere and explain to them why the value of the dollar actually matters.
Well, of course it does matter, and it is, I'm glad that we're now focusing more on it, because the shrinking of the value of the dollar hurts American consumers. It certainly is going to hurt our capability to attract investment into our country. We're at zero interest rates. It's just putting pressure on all points, and of course what I hope we will look at is starting to put our house in order to give the global markets more confidence that we are going to start going toward a balanced budget rather than these continuing big spending projects that we're doing.
Let's talk a little bit about health care. Where do you think it's going to be a week from now?
Well, Tyler, speaking of big spending binges, this government takeover of health care is another big spending issue. We're already around $10 trillion in debt, $20 trillion if we go all the way out 10 years. This is very alarming. It's alarming because of the high cost, over $800 billion. It is alarming because it's going to be tax increases on all of the companies that are pharmaceutical companies, companies that give health insurance, equipment companies. It's going to be a big tax bill on American people because premiums are going to go up. I think that more spending, more taxes is not what we need right now. So your question, of course, is where's it going to be next week? It's going to come out of committee. There's no doubt about that. We are insisting that there be 72 hours for this bill to be on the internet because we haven't even seen the actual bill yet. It will come out of committee, probably not even as a bill.
Senator, good morning. Switching topics,
Hi, Don.
Good morning. Financial reform. What are the key elements that you're in favor of as it relates to the financial reforms of the regulatory? On the regulatory side,
I am very worried that we are going to put another layer of regulatory enforcement in the areas that are already regulated. You know, Don, you're a small banker, not small, but successful small banker, but we have good regulations in the banking industry. Where we need regulatory reform is to get control of the other side of the financial markets, the derivatives, the places where we don't have transparency and we don't have any really regulatory operation. So I'm very concerned that we are going to put another layer on banks that already have basically good regulation, and that's not where we need the help.
Do we need the help, Senator? This is David Faber, though. In the mortgage arena, for example, do consumers need to be protected? Obviously, it was a lot of unregulated, both banks and non-banks, that gave out mortgages to people who couldn't afford them throughout the country because there's really no unified regulator, virtually no state regulations whatsoever on that activity.
Well, yes, we do need to protect the mortgage buyer, but you know, that was a government policy pushing home ownership, and that's what was being done out of HUD and out of the government initiatives, and people were being, even banks were being forced almost to make loans into areas where the person getting the loan was not creditworthy, and so we had bad loans in the government-backed Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and it got overwhelming. And then with the derivatives and packaging all these loans from all over and taking the regulatory.
We should just point out, I mean, a lot of the mortgages actually that caused a lot of the problems were not from banks, but from non-regulated companies. many of them are gone at this
Exactly.
point, though many of them may come back. They were AmeriQuest and Countrywide, which had a bank but wasn't regulated as one. So just to make that point, we could see that come back again.
Well,
would you, do you not favor any sort of regulation?
I do. That's what I was trying to say, that I think we should be putting regulations where we don't have regulatory reform in place. We have regulatory systems in place for banks, but not for these loan companies that really didn't have regulation, that caused a big part of the problem. And then the packaging up of these loans, sending them somewhere where there was no skin in the game for the person who made the loan, who looked at the collateral value. So I do think we need to have reform in the areas that don't have regulation that is adequate and transparent. I just hate to see some of the things that have come out of the Secretary of the Treasury and some of the other recommendations just seem to be piling on where it isn't needed as much as the areas where we have nothing.
Senator, what do we have to do to create some jobs? How do we stop this unemployment spike?
I do think, Don, that is where we ought to be focusing our efforts, and that means we shouldn't be taxing business more. We should be taking taxes off the backs of business so that they will be able to hire more people. That's why this health care reform bill and cap and trade to follow that are going through Congress right now are huge tax increases on the businesses that create jobs. Cap and trade will export more jobs from America at exactly the wrong time. So I think we need to cut taxes. We need to try to spur the stimulus money that hasn't been spent yet should be going into infrastructure, building, things that require jobs, not these social programs that are not going to create jobs except for government jobs. What we need are private sector jobs that will continue to spur the economy.
Senator Hutchison, thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, coming up,